have been using this custom-built gaming PC for around 2 years now. Now, when I was first getting into PC building and I built this one, all I was searching for was a quad-core, which is 4-core CPU. And I found one on eBay, which I was like, yes, a quad-core for this price, it is totally a steal. A steal it was not. This was an AMD Phenom X4 945 running at 2.2 gigahertz. 2.2 gigahertz, which I did manage to overclock to 2.5, which, that's not very fast at all, but at the time I was like, yes, it's 4 cores. 4 cores, 4 threads, what could be better? A lot more could be better, actually. I also purchased 8 gigs of DDR3 RAM, which 8 gigs, that's great. It wasn't 4, so it's definitely better than 4 gigs. As for the GPU, now this GPU is like entry-level 1080p gaming, which was an RX 460 4GB graphics card. It was an ASUS STRIX, actually. So ASUS STRIX RX 460 4GB graphics card, which is actually a pretty good card for the price that I got it, which was $90 at the time. And it just came out, actually, because this was about two and a half years ago. Anyway, so that was about the best deal of the whole entire build. As for the hard drives, I had a 120 gig hard drive, not an SSD, a hard drive, with a 1TB hard drive as well. And also another good part of this build is the power supply, which is not this one. It was a 600 watt power supply, 80 plus bronze. Now this computer is my old computer, but the new computer, which is this one right here, which you probably saw from the intro, is a Dell Optiplex 910. I got this for $175 and the specs are as follows. It has an i7-3770, 4 cores, 8 threads, running at 3.4 GHz and also has turbo boost. I don't know what it turbo's up to at the moment, but it's higher than 3.4. Okay, so right off the bat we can instantly see that the 2.5 GHz from the last CPU and the 3.4 from this one is gonna be a massive difference. Now, moving on, it has 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM, so an extra 8 gigs on top of that. And remember, I got this for $175. Here's what actually came with the $175 Dell Optiplex 910. It came with a CPU, the i7-3770, 16 gigs of RAM. It came with a 500 gig hard drive, which I'm not using in this build because I'll tell you later what I picked up for that SSD actually. It also came with the motherboard, obviously, and also came with a GeForce 640, which was not included, but they gave it to me anyway, which I didn't know I was paying for, but that's kind of cool in a way. And also a cheap power supply. Now the components that you see in here are from the old computer, and I switched some of the components between these two computers for the new computer. For instance, you always want to change out the power supply because the original OEM is like not what you want for gaming. It's fine for gaming, but to run a graphics card and the CPU and a bunch of other stuff, you would want a 80 plus bronze or something like that. Now actually I'm going to be going over like switching some of the components. So in the first PC, oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, for the new PC I also picked up a Samsung 840 120 gig SSD for $20 on eBay. I thought that was a pretty good steal and I'm pretty happy with it so far. I have already installed Windows on it and it is snappy. Now getting on to switching some of the components around between the two PCs from the old PC to the new one. First things first, I took out the 1TB hard drive from the old PC. It was sort of a struggle because of the small case. Now, if you're getting into PC gaming for the first time and you're building yourself a computer, please do not make this mistake. Please get a big enough case. Do not get a small case like I did. Look at the wires. They're cramped and they're so hard to get this stuff out. I had to unplug some stuff before I could even get the hard drive out, which is absolutely horrible. And it was nightmarish because I actually thought I was breaking the board because it was like pushing on some of the components. And it's just, it was horrible. Never do that. Get yourself a decent sized case for your first gaming PC. Word of advice. Okay. Now back to the actual build. After taking out the 1TB hard drive and putting it into the gaming PC, the new one, I actually ran into a problem because I couldn't put it here, which is I thought was a hard drive thing. I think it's for like a floppy disk drive, which, what is a floppy disk drive? Yeah, anyway. But I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can see that. It was right down here. It has like the slide things for the hard drive bay. And I didn't actually have one for this computer, but when I was looking through a bunch of old PCs that I have, I actually found one and it fit perfectly and I slotted it right in. Now next, taking out of the old PC was the GPU, the RX 460, which came out super easy. Just unplug the 6-pin and just undo some of the slot cover screws and just pull that thing right out and you're good to go. Now on to something a little bit more challenging was the power supply, which you had to unplug all of the components that was plugged into and then remove it. 4 screws on the back of the case, removed it, and all you do is pull it out. And that was about it for removing all the stuff out of the old PC. Now putting it into the new PC, this had several challenges which I was not expecting. Number 1, the power supply, when I was trying to put it back in, well actually before I get there, I actually have to remove the old power supply, which was like a 400 watt OEM power supply. So after removing it, after unplugging all the components, I realized it was a small tab on the bottom way back in here that you had to push down to pull out the power supply. Once that done, it came out very easy, and now a new problem was putting the new power supply, the 600 watt right here, in. When I was first installing it, this plastic cover right here, or this plastic piece, was actually in my way, and so therefore it was actually a big problem, and I could not figure out how to fit it in. Now the thing I did not want to do was to have to take out the motherboard, which I ended up doing anyway. So removing the motherboard, there's about 8 screws, I think, 8, 6, 8, I forget at the moment. Either 8 or 10 or 6, I don't know. You take them out and you can easily remove the motherboard. Be careful not to bump any of the components and not touch anything. After I got the motherboard out, I'm always a little stressed out about taking stuff out because if I drop screws on the motherboard, that's not good. And you can also damage the motherboard by static and all sorts of stuff like that. So I was not very happy to take this thing out. But I did manage to get it out safely and all in one piece. After removing it, I stuck the power supply in and it actually went in quite easy. I just had to figure out the right orientation to put it in. After screwing it into the back of the case, it worked quite well then. Then I put the motherboard back in. I also then hooked up some of the components, plugging in some of the motherboard, the 24-pin, the 4-pin for the CPU, and also for the hard drives down here, and also the DVD drives up here. Next was putting in the RX 460 graphics card right here, and that was pretty self-explanatory. You just lift up on this tab, pops open, no screws necessary, and just slots it right in there, and plug in the 6-pin connector as I show up on screen now. Now that was pretty much it. I actually was pretty happy with the build, how it went so far. And another thing that I actually ran into was right down here on the hard drive. It was a little bit too close to the outside of the case because it did not have an angle SATA connector, so that was a problem. It does bulge the case on this side, which I will fix that probably in the future, but for now I don't have one and I didn't pick one up, so I'm just gonna have to leave it like that, which is not recommended. You do not want stuff to be pushing on your cables against your hard drive. That is not good. But now that's pretty much all, putting the old components into the new PC and removing the stuff from the new PC and putting it into the old PC. The old PC is just gonna lay around somewhere and not do anything, while the new PC is going to be my daily driver. This is my new gaming and editing PC, which I'm really happy about and super stoked to get this thing rolling, which I already installed Windows on the SSD, as I think I mentioned, but I might have. So the next part of the video is going to be comparing the old PC to the new PC and a couple benchmarks and also a HandBrake video rendering test. So to do this, we are going to venture down to the basement in the horrible yellow lighting. Sorry for that, because up here it is roughly around, the temperature in here is roughly around, I don't know if you can even see that. No, you can't even see that. I'll just read it to you. 43.2 degrees because I don't have heat up here and sometimes you can see my breath. Anyway, my hands are freezing. Yeah, let's get to the basement because, well, and let's do the benchmarks. Yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway. Oh, should probably take this. Okay everyone, welcome to the basement where we're going to be doing our benchmarks and our tests. And our first test that we will be running is CineBench R15, the CPU test. Over here we have the i7-3770, and over there we have the AMD Phenom X4 945. So without further ado, I'm going to test these, and we're also going to be doing a GeekBench 4 test as well, and also exporting a video out of HandBrake. So without further ado, let's get the test started, and I will check back to review the scores at the end of the video. Now that both are finished with each benchmark and test, we will take a look at each of the scores. So back to the studio we go, and I will see you there. So back in the studio, we're going to be taking a look at the benchmark scores. On this side, we will have AMD, and on this side, we will have Intel. So the first test we did was CineBench R15, and I got the numbers right here. We have on the AMD side 253. And on the Intel side, we have a whopping score of 670. Clear winner, Intel i7, and the Phenom AMD, whatever we used to have, 945, okay. The next test we did was a GeekBench, and on the AMD side, we have, for the single score of 1,775, and for a multi-core score of 5,279. For Intel side over here, we have a single core score of 3,927. For the multi, we have 13,476. Nice. Moving on to the last test, we have HandBrake, which I handbraked a video. I exported a video on HandBrake. It was 4 minutes and 24 seconds long, and it was 720p, and I changed a few of the settings to increase the quality and the video bitrate of it. And so I exported it and timed it to see what it would come out as, and the AMD got a score of 6 minutes, just around 6 minutes, a little bit above, but it doesn't matter because the Intel got a time of 2 minutes and 15 seconds, making it way quicker than this number, meaning that the 6 minutes doesn't even matter, and we can just get rid of that because Intel, this number is pretty quick. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Hope this shed some light on how fast the Dell Optiplex 910 actually is, and I do recommend on buying this, and I will have a couple more videos about the new computer itself, a couple benchmarks, and I haven't thought of all the stuff, all the videos that I need to do about it yet. And with that being said, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.